like today we will be reiterating that topic that Andrew mentioned in the morning, which is basically the story that he told from 2009. As Aspire members were asking themselves the question, would we still be here in 2019? And during this panel discussion, we would like to have a look at it or ask another question. What we can become, what is our future, what should be our future? Thank you very much for introduction. Before I go into this topic, I would like to tell you a short story. Just to change a little bit our perspective. One of my colleagues from the UK told me the story when he was working for the Japanese company. And at some point he was asked to prepare the budget. So he's done his work, he prepared the budget, he submitted it, but then he got the response. You know, it's okay, but you know, we would like you to prepare the 300 years budget. And he was kind of stunned with that, because who on earth prepares the budget for 300 years ahead? But actually it was the exercise that the company used to change the point of view, to change the perspective, to not look at incremental change, incremental improvement, but rather think about something radically different. Because in 300 years, everything will be different. Today, I'd like to have a conversation with the group of panelists about the vision that we have for high-tech industry in Kraków. And this is the vision that we've been trying to develop over some time. Basically, we started having conversations about what is our future, what is our sustainable future in this place, in this location. And I will present this vision in very short terms right now. But we will dive into these topics during our conversation. So how about thinking about our location, about our town, about the high-tech industry in our town as a thriving community, as a vibrant community, thriving ecosystem of companies, startups, towns, city, academia, a place where products are being developed, global products are developed, and global businesses also developed. How about thinking about our location, about Kraków as a globally recognized high-tech hub? We would like to invite you to this conversation by participating in the Menti application. We will present a question, and please feel invited to give us some feedback, give us some your reaction to this vision that we have just presented. The word cloud will be open all the time during the whole discussion, so please just join us in forming this vision with us. To this discussion, I'd like to invite a fine group of panelists representing high-tech companies that have their offices in Kraków. So I would like to invite Przemek Zakrzewski from ABB, Szymon from Akamai, Chris Kern from Cisco. We have Sławek Kumka from IBM, but he's joining us remotely because he's currently in Hong Kong, so we will test the technology today. Adam Romanowicz from IG. Jacek from Motorola. Gentlemen, I think we just can have conversation. We've spoken about the content, the story that we want to tell during this meeting. And in our conversations, the topic that kept coming was the question about why. Why do we think this topic is important? Why do we think, why we should care?
will start with that. So during our discussions as a software group, mentioned that many times that sustainable future for our center is quite important thing for us, and I think we all believe that to achieve that we cannot focus only on the quantity aspects, like yet another project introduced to our Kraków offices, yet another engineering team working on some new area. We discussed that we need something more. Our people are growing together with our organizations. They are really capable people that can work wherever they want. We need to support their career aspirations, and as our GBS colleagues mentioned, it's not an easy task. We agree that we have to focus on the quality, but if we think quality is only technical excellence, that's not enough. We are really great in that technical excellence aspects. We are widely recognized as experts from our stakeholders, but technical excellence will not get our people into VP level. It simply will not. We are very successful in like being proficient in tech, but when it comes to business ownership, we are failing. So it's blocking us to get beyond the director level. And we all believe that's a perfect example why working together as a software group can help us. That even though we are competing like a hell for talent pool, we can work together to create a win-win situation here.
It's an interesting point because yes, we compete between us for the talent pool, but actually there's this point about focus on our people and developing our people. It's one of those motivations about why.
Is this on? Okay. So I think the problem's actually bigger than this, and I like what's coming up right now on the word cloud, because I think AI, automation, RPA, we're expecting to see those. That should be there. But I think the question we should be asking is actually, what are we doing to develop the workforce, the talent right now in Kraków, to take it from university to future jobs which are going to be created? And I say that because they say industry experts say that by 2050, 40% of the jobs which exist today will not exist anymore. And that means the jobs which don't exist today will need to take up more precedence. There are plenty of jobs which exist today, such as data scientists, public data brokers, public data, forensics experts. These kind of jobs, either they're in small demand globally or they're in small demand here in Kraków. And it's important for us to look at what future jobs are going to become relevant. And I think it's important not only for the IT sector, but also because of the fact that Kraków has such a large population which is shared services. And the more shared services go towards AI, automation, the more of these will become more prominent. And I think this is the key that we should be focusing on, not only as a software group, but as a future of Kraków as a city.
So the why for us has kind of two phases. One is internal in our company, sustainable future for our companies, but also sustainable future for the city. Can we dive into those elements of the vision that we discussed previously, and just appreciating the fact that Sławek is a remote participant of this conversation, I'd like to ask him to take the first part of this conversation, of this part.
Thank you very much. So first of all, I wish I'm not physically in the ICE conference center, but due to some important things, I have to be somewhere else. But let me start. I was asked about the collaboration, how I see collaboration between our companies, generally the business and the city. So before I go to the conclusion, I would like just to give some background. I don't know if every one of you have ever looked at the city as probably one of the biggest innovation humankind was ever discovered, and why? Because the city is usually the place where exist and live together group of the people. In majority, people do not each other, and through that, I would say, complex system they are creating, they are able to innovate and establish the relation, education, and whatever, which leads to the biggest and newer innovation. And it just confirms that it was happening over the years. Rome, Babylon, some other areas. So that's why I would say city is very important, and taking care about the city is a very important thing, and collaboration in many groups, especially with the city authorities, business, people who live in the city is a very important thing. Of course, cities has a lot of challenges right now, and the current world has challenges. It's a climate change, pollution, traffic, aging population. I believe in the future we'll also suffer from the food and water accessibility. We also face other challenges like concentration of the people in the big agglomerations where the industry is, and also kind of the homogenization of the cities. That homogenization is actually interesting, and probably we should look here how we see our city in 10 years from that perspective. I believe that there are bigger cities all over the world which have experienced similar state which Kraków is right now, and found a lot of good solution in that area. So what I would say, how our business and how the future work with authorities should look like, I would just look at the different models and different scenarios which were applied by different cities, and actually define which model is the best for Kraków. Right now, I would say we do not have any model of the growth and collaboration. I think we are very siloed, and what I would like to see in 10 years, and I believe it would happen, that we've got some really closer relationship and the partnership aligned. And especially, it does not depend really which model you look. If it's a top steering country level like in China, where, for example, Shanghai is growing due to decision of the country, or I would say strong cities like New York having own policy and they dictate the conditions, but from other hand, business through the local chambers of commerce has a big influence and even voting part in their city parliament and local government. Or I would say cities like Sydney or Bangkok, which actually are working more on business side, how to develop the future of the location, because the strong government does not exist in that areas and it's actually distributed. Or cities like, maybe somehow this is how Kraków looks like, where ad hoc on very direct initiatives the companies and the business work together to address the issues. So anyway, I trust that we as a local Kraków community together with authorities and the universities can work out the best model for us and choose one of the best approaches based on the historical things. And as a conclusion, I would say that in that context, I would really see in 10 years, Kraków has a very clear and aligned view of strategic priorities and broader agenda of city growth. Second, I believe a sense of business, it's on our side. I believe there's nothing really to do in the city, but I think that from the business perspective, it is important that we are working as one body all together and share our interest and also represent the business interest in the city. Sitting there with the voting voice or I would say some kind of the really valuable decision-making process. Maybe it's something we should, and I believe maybe this would happen, something like Chamber of Commerce of Kraków, because most of the big cities actually has this type of the associations which are working together with the authorities on developing the city. Third, sense of business, as I said, working together, but from other hand, as I said, participation in transparency and approachability, both among the city authorities as well as a business. and really developing together with people who are living the strategy of the city, not only from the one direction. And the last one, and I believe from the technology perspective, this is what we as a tech companies can help with, using our expertise to help understand how to overcome the challenges, use some technology to address the issues like pollution, like environmental challenges, traffic, or whatever different aspect where technology could be fostered.
Thank you, Sławek, very much.
I would say.
Thank you. I have to admit that I was slightly scared about this part because, technology, as we represent technology, it is always a risk. Okay, thank you very much. Going back to other elements of our vision, Chris, you've spoken about developing talent, developing actually skill set, developing capability among jobs actually in the market that we will need in 10 years. It's a quite far future. The question was that you've spoken before about developing talent, developing jobs that we will need in a couple of years. Let me move a little closer. We have a little bit of feedback here, that's fine. And you gave some examples of jobs that need some time to be created, that we need to spend some time before we can actually happen.
The other thing I think that's important is not only about it's about creating the demand as well in the workplace. Kraków is kind of known today for developing steady state, and what we should be looking at into the future is how we can actually take it from steady state to looking 20, 30 years down the line into the future and saying what jobs we're really going to need here in Kraków, jobs which can be done from this location. How we can actually tie this back to universities, how we can actually provide like a body, let's say a think tank or something that we can use to create a platform we can share back to universities to say, look, we know what kind of jobs we're going to need in the future. As technology companies, we should be aware of this, right? And so from this, we can create the demand on the market. We can create this back to university and say, this is what we actually need in the future. This is what you should be looking at in future curriculums. And we can use this to actually build the talent that we need for the future.
Thank you very much. Jacek, you've been speaking about cooperation with universities for quite a long time.
So can you hear us? Because we cannot hear ourselves, talking here, so we are not sure you can hear us. Let me spend, next 3 minutes on one of the topics which is, I think, absolutely critical if you are talking about further development of our industry, especially technology in Kraków, which is cooperation with universities in one specific area. I think, we are sitting here with experience of the companies of 5, 10, 20 years being in Kraków, and I think we went through this path with working with the universities extensively. And of course, there were failures, there were ups and downs, and we developed a couple of topics that are working. We do have workshops, we do have lectures, we provide, knowledge to the university and back. We are building laboratories, we are writing master thesis programs, we have PhDs, we sponsor grants, etc., etc. But I think, and we are pretty much successful in working with universities in these areas. But there is one area I think we are far, far behind. And I think we need to desperately, I say desperately, to improve in the next 2 decades, which is a research area and working on the research and technology space with the universities. I will give you just one example, and I think this example is being mentioned multiple times to you coming from US. And I think if you are talking about US and technology, you need to talk about California. And I will give you just example in a couple of numbers from 2 universities sitting there. Of course, one which is private one, Stanford. The budget of this university is $4.6 billion yearly. They manage altogether, if you are talking about finance working with business, $24.6 billion. They had over 80 Nobel people out of this university, over 20 Turing Awards. People that left the university in Stanford, they created overall companies that produce yearly $2.7 trillion of revenue. They created until now more than 10 million of jobs. Couple of kilometers from Stanford, there is another university, Berkeley, which is a public one, comparing to the private one in Stanford. Their budget is $4.6 billion, so much, much smaller comparing to Stanford. They produce over 100 Nobel people, okay? And exactly the same numbers if you are talking about working with the industry. And this is not coming in 1 year, this is not coming in 5 years, this is not coming even in 20 years. But when you look, how the technology is developing in that area, you know it very well, they are absolutely on the top of the earth. So, and I'm desperately talking to you. I don't know how many people from university are here, but definitely I think majority are from business. Think about it and pass this message to all our friends and all our colleagues, because we have strong ties to the universities. We need to build first, if you want to work in the research, we need to build trust. How do you build trust? First, you have to know each other. So, I don't know how many times we had this kind of a conversations. I'm going to repeat it, and please repeat it, in the conversations. To know the business, we have to come to each other. We have to go to university. We have to know what they are exactly doing there, what type of research, but it has to go vice versa. We are much more open right now for people from the university to come and join us. Come to our meetings, come to our projects. We are going to, all the formalities are going to be completed. But just sit and listen what we do. What is the technology that we are working on? What is going on to happen in 5-10 years? What are our challenges in technology? What do we need? How can we build a research bridge if we don't know as business what the university is doing in the research space? And how they can propose anything to us if they have no idea what we are doing. So my point is, if we want to develop next 10, 20 years here in Krakow, we have to go exactly the same path as Stanford and Berkeley went many, many years ago. That has to be a strong tie to the business. We need to understand each other, we need to propose each other, we need to challenge each other. We need to find ways how to do win-win. And my message to everybody, let's just try. I remember 10 years ago, we didn't have this kind of conversations among us. Everybody was in a silos. University was afraid of us. We were afraid of the universities. Oh, they are stealing our people, and vice versa. Now we started this kind of a conversation. It's a big, big positive sign. And my final message to everybody, open your minds, start conversations, and let's try simply to do it.
Well, the vision that we have is basically a materialization of that cooperation, that we actually achieve this point. And we will speak later on about how do we get there, how should we cooperate to get there. So we've mentioned the cooperation with City, we've mentioned the creation of new jobs, we've mentioned the cooperation with universities. One of the other aspects was people development. Adam, you wanted to speak about that?
Yeah, so we heard many times today about the success of Kraków. And from the technology standpoint, yes, we achieved success. We are the main technology hub in Central and Eastern Europe. So we have proven our skill set, we have proven credibility in the area of technology. So, so that's our success, that's our asset. But what's even more important, that in the area of technology, we can create and we can drive technology design, technical design and architecture, and implement it. To some extent, to a very limited extent, we are still being perceived as best value for money location. However, over many years, it has also changed, and companies are choosing Krakow not because of cost effectiveness, but because of our technical competence, quality, and technical professionalism. So, when talking about future, long-distance future, 10 years from now, the question is, what should we change? And I think that the current model, when we focus only on technology and when we focus only on technology talent, is not sustainable. What got us here won't get us there. We need to heavily invest in the technology area. We need to heavily invest in non-technical talent. Non-technical talent related to product management, related to business. And that should be our focus for the next years. With that, we can continue changing, evolving our mindset to be more customer focused, to be more business focused. And I think that should be our priority for next years, and that should be our focus for next years.
Thank you. Przemek, I think that your company has an interesting story to tell. You started from the R&D unit. Can you share with us, with the audience, what do you see as those elements of the vision?
Okay. If I'm saying something totally irrelevant to the discussion, so I'm sorry, I cannot hear very well. So, but let me start with something totally different. Okay. Talking about Kraków 2029 and talking what we should be and how to get to this point, I wish and I promise I will make my best next year if I'm invited and I have the opportunity to meet you guys, to be on the stage with some girls and ladies as a technical leaders. Okay, so this is the really thing we have to change. Okay? So this is my experience that this element we are missing very much. I wish I could collaborate with girls, ladies. This is the thing that makes my team a little bit better. And talking about the things we need, it's the truly ecosystem and collaboration across 4 elements that we already mentioned. We've been talking about it from very morning this conference. So. How many of you, maybe I will ask a question to you guys, how many of you have read the strategy of Kraków development for 2030, our mayor mentioned today in the morning? How many of you are familiar with this strategy? Okay, so this is the point, you mentioned a second ago, about, what university is doing, what we are doing, what technology can do. So first of all, we need to a little bit be aware what 4 elements need. Education, our local government, our well-established businesses, and the 4th element. How many of you are from startups? How can we talk about the future if there is no people from startup in this audience? So 4 elements I wish we could really somehow put together and think about the future of Kraków. So I believe that today's discussion we are having right now is the beginning of bringing some ladies to the table, bringing some startups, bringing people to know a little bit more what the future of the plan of the future of the Kraków is. So 4 elements, and I believe that would be great across the teams understand what kind of challenges and digital economy for Kraków means 2030, 2022, and how this digital economy we can approach from different angles, from R&D, from my company, collaborating with universities, how we can approach this digital economy 2029 from the angle of technology and businesses with our government, what we can do locally as a company, how we can really add value to the city, and the other way, how we should collaborate with technology and education to make sure that we have young, talented people, not only in engineering, but also business, product development. So that would be my answer to your question, what ecosystem we need.
Thank
if it was the question, I didn't hear.
Thank you very much. We speak about the elements of vision that cover kind of thriving cooperation between different actors on the scene, and I think that if we imagine how this cooperation could look like in the future, it means influencing a very, very large context sometimes. So it is well, in my opinion, it is impossible for any of the single actors to influence those contexts on their own. So I'd like to spend some time right now about kind of thinking about how can we cooperate together and why we should, the why I think is evident now, but how can we build this closer cooperation between different actors and how we can bridge those gaps?
So I would make the topic that Jacek mentioned a little bit further. So the subject of trust, and I think that's the key aspect. We all operate in highly competitive, fast-paced environment. Time is really precious resource. So if we are getting some requests, some ideas from the outside of our organizations, let's be fair, the first natural reaction is a pushback. We don't want to spend too much time on that. If someone is asking us for like sharing some data from the inside of our organization, it's even worse. But the situation is completely different if we are getting requests from some trusted partner. In that case, I will at least listen carefully to the idea before making any decision. So to get to that trust level, I think the first and the easiest step is to build personal relations between partners, to talk to each other, to have the ways to understand, to learn how we operate, and then we can move it further.
Thank you very much.
So something that I would like to see is I'd like to see some of the more established and mature companies on the market in Kraków actually help and support some of the startups. Because I see something I think that we could do a lot more of. We've been through the ropes, we know the environment, we've been in these situations. We can actually help some of the other companies to get established faster. And what you'll see from the startups is the startups generally tend to have a mentality of get everything done really quickly, high energy, and that can actually bring something back too. So if you find you're collaborating with a startup company, it can actually bring new life into an existing organization which may be more rigid in its ways.
And also, I think that it helps in job creation, in new professions, because in established companies, you have the structure of jobs, but in startups, you basically create what you need.
This is the key, right? Because this is where we'll get the early adopters from, which will help us to build industry experts 20 years down the line. And we may not see those kind of jobs come today, working in companies which are much more mature and have a big organization, many processes here, but the startups will always have the ability to say, I need this position, I need it tomorrow, let's go and create it or find it.
So how do we create this space for cooperation? How do we create this space for knowledge sharing?
Okay.
So Sławek here,
Sławek is you or me?
if you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's it. Go on. Okay, so my point here would be the following. I believe, first of all, to be in the position that we can somehow influence those type of decisions, we really need leaders. And the leaders, not necessarily which are kind of the good leaders acting locally, but the leaders who may influence our company internally and bring some of the additional investment and project, including research, into our location. That's extremely hard to do, and the part of the problem I see, and this is the area I think we should somehow share our experience and get to the next level, is how we can grow our people to be on the decision-making committees, in decision-making inner circles, because that's the important and even if it's not the most important element, how we can become successful. Being also successful within our companies and being in the very close and very small circle of people deciding about putting the investment and people who actually may show to everyone that we are very trustful location and the trustful teams.
Thank you
people
very much.
They can trust.
Thank you.
So cooperation is a very powerful word. And yes, we have to cooperate, not only as individuals, but as companies. We have to use this opportunity of cooperation to learn from each other, and especially in the technology area, to learn about the things outside of technology, as we mentioned earlier today. Product development, business. That is something what we can, that is the area in which we can support each other. So we can create more space for different exchange forums, knowledge exchange forums, like meetups. We have many technology meetups already. So it would be great if we could expand the scope of those meetups to topics related to business and product development. Also, when it comes to meetups, we can create more space for meetups with not only with relatively junior people, but also with high-profile individuals who can share their very rich experience. And by working together, we can create much better quality content for those meetings, for conferences. The content that will fit all our needs. So that's definitely the area for cooperation. And just one more thing about the universities. I definitely want to second the opinion about the need of cooperation with universities. Currently, in many areas, it's very spontaneous cooperation on ad hoc basis. And what we need in technology, we need more knowledge and expertise in the area of business, products, communication, soft skills, teamwork, and value of teamwork. So all of those aspects should be integral part of academic streams. So we need to make it part of the system, and that's another area of cooperation for us.
You have mentioned system, and in all ours, on our context, we operate in separate systems. But actually, when we think about building the cooperation and actually benefiting from the common goal, how do we change the context? How do we expand our thinking?
Well, it's in my opinion, it's a problem of choice. It's a problem of choice of everybody sitting in this panel and everybody sitting on the second side of in this room. Question to cooperate or not to cooperate. And of course, everybody in our companies, we are operating with different contexts, in different business, with different areas, and of course, boundaries related to our business. So, in a short run, I think there is a very nice will to stay exactly as it is. We feel comfortable. Over 10, 20 years, we developed our businesses here. We of course, we are competing on the market, but somehow we are still finding a talent, and we still develop and we deliver what is expected in front of us. And of course, we could stay this way. But just a couple of seconds ago came new thing to my mind. In the afternoon, we are going to have a session related to leader versus manager. And in my opinion, it's exactly this kind of a question. Being a manager, okay, we could absolutely stay exactly as it is. But in my opinion, in the long run, we should think as leaders. What I mean by this, I will give you a dilemma that each of us, I think, sitting in this panel, and many of you have on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis. We are constantly being asked for multiple years by different organizations responsible for development of the country to meet with the new investor who is thinking about putting a location in Kraków, Katowice, Wrocław, Poznań, or any other city, just to share the knowledge, and for them to make a best choice and best selection where to put the business. And I'm also saying we are meeting with these guys on a monthly basis. Years ago, last 3 years, I met with 3 companies that are thinking about establishing new locations here in Kraków. And years ago, I was asked by bosses and bosses of my bosses, what the hell, Jacek, are you doing? So you are talking and inviting competition to this severe market? Are you crazy? Maybe not in these words, but that was the meaning. And I explain, constantly. Now it's gone. Now we understand very well. I constantly explain, if you think in a short run, that's exactly the story. In a short run, that is going to be a competition. We are going to compete more on the market. But think about it in the long run. What is going to happen in the long run? The more companies, the more different businesses, the more flexible labor market and anything is here, the more businesses are here, the more startups are going to grow. Students that are going to select universities are going to come to the city where the business is. The research that I was talking about has much better chance to develop, etc., etc. What I mean by this is we are going to create a long-term ecosystem that is going to invite everybody else to join this ecosystem in this city, and in the long run, I think all of us are going to succeed. Guess what? After 10 years, that's exactly what happened. And I think we have no other choice than open and collaborate in this area.
You mentioned the decision point, and I think it's. You also mentioned the ad hoc nature of some of our actions. But how do we go from events to process? How do we turn our current decisions into something sustainable that will last for future?
I believe it's related to kind of, let's call it framework of doing things together. And I see important role of local government to create framework that we can operate on this market, business market, labor market, all aspects of the thing. So this is the one element which is required. The other one is, you mentioned events, meetups. Another element of this process is to make sure that we can exchange information not only between us, but again to new business. And please don't be afraid about startups, entering startups in our area, because those guys, they are not eating our cake. They're expanding this cake. This cake, it's getting bigger and bigger due to new things, due to new business models, new products, solutions, services, whatever we deliver out of Kraków. So this is the role of ourselves, to create such a framework to make sure that we can exchange things like knowledge, not only knowledge potentially. And I believe that I can tell you one story what happened, it is real. I believe that a couple of years ago we had discussion about whether invest, not invest, whether open something new here or there. And I remember the conclusion. The conclusion was like this: it's better to live in the city where competition is than to open something that nobody is. So this is the conclusion. I'm not afraid about competition, just it creates opportunity on all sides, on both sides of competitors.
Okay, thank you very much. I think we will be concluding our topics. Can we bring the slide with our word cloud to the screen so we can see what's the reaction from the audience? Thank you very much. I think it's people in the center. That's great. I'm really pleased to see that. I would like to finish this conversation with something tangible. And Przemek mentioned diversity already. I'm glad that you've raised this point. But I truly believe that the diversity of thought, diversity of backgrounds, building the ability to work across our differences is a key thing for us to succeed in the future. So I'd like to finish with a proposal, some kind of an action point for us. That next year we increase the diversity in such discussions as we have now, not only in terms of gender, but also in terms of the representation, that we have all the actors represented in those in such conversation. Thank you very much for your attention, and a big round of applause to our panelists. Thank you very much.